morning and welcome to the ICC Crack the Wellness Code Wellness Support Group session number 8. We are really glad that you have been coming and joining and gaining new insights to various aspects of wellness. So we have a 10 session series with us for this first batch, and we completed 7 and today is the 8th one. Which is on a very, very interesting topic, financial wellness. But we'll get into that a little later. Let's look at where we are. There are various facets of wellness, and we have been covering them one by one to offer wellness 360 degrees. Last time we had occupational, and we have covered emotional, we have covered mind body, we have covered diet, exercise, sleep, and now we are into financial wellness, a topic that is extremely integrated, in our life. It's not just about finance, it's about many, many other things. And we are so delighted to have a person who's also 360 degrees in nature in terms of his accomplishments, his vision, his activities, and that's something that will also give you a complete perspective on wellness when you integrate financial wellness with all these aspects that we've covered so far, and of course the other two that remains, the intellectual wellness and the spiritual wellness. So before we go and introduce our guest speaker, let me tell you a little bit about the learning objectives. This is what we are looking to learn. It's going to be like a discussion forum, so it's not just necessarily a one-way kind of presentation. Our guest speaker, Naren Bakshi, is known to many of you, and he's really going to open his heart out about every aspect of wellness and how finance is part of it, not just for the sake of money, but for the sake of, just, planning your journey of life. So these are some of the learning objectives. We'll make it very interactive, and Naren Bakshi would be absolutely delighted to, reach out to your, your concerns, your questions, and of course, there are a lot of things to learn from him and take away, and of course, practice them in the best possible manner. Before anything else, just wanted to present this customary disclaimer and waiver. You can see it on your screen. So we all look forward, to have a very engaging session with you. And we'll talk a lot about this whole wellness support group initiative that we have taken in terms of the certification and also in terms of how we're going to work with you long term. And we really thank you for being here once again on a Saturday morning, and also for all those who are coming and joining from India, which is, past 10:30. It's really, really heartening to see all of you here, including our guest speaker, who had a very, very busy day, in India, and he's joining us from Jaipur, and it's so late in the night, and he's still, going to be giving us some great learning and takeaway points. So let me go ahead and, invite today's guest speaker, Naren Bakshi, and I also wanted to show you his accomplishments and a little bit. There's actually a lot that I can talk about, and as we kind of unravel the mystery of his journey and what he has done, I just wanted to capture everything in this one slide. It's very difficult actually to do that, but if you see this slide, there are 3 aspects of him. He's a health hero, of course, and he's also the founder, the co-founder and a champion and a chief mentor of ICC Crack the Wellness Code. He's been a community leader all through. I mean, right from his early days as a professional, he started working on a community center in Ohio, and then finally right in the heart of Silicon Valley, which is 18 years old. And yesterday we had the 17th banquet of ICC, the India Community Center, which is uh, North America's largest community center for South Asians. And you can see, I would like to, just divide his journey. It's very illustrious, and it's been a long and rewarding for him, and also for the community members who have been associated with him. So one is his corporate entrepreneurship, advisory role. There are many of them. I've just put few of them, and you can hear the rest from him. And of course, the other right on the top, you have his philanthropy, his community related, contribution. And of course, all through, he has managed his finances very well, obviously, because he has been doing this for several years. People come to the end of their life and then they think, well, let me do something for the community, and let me try to achieve, for 360-degree wellness, including financial wellness. But he has really lived that entire thing. So there's a lot to learn from him. And of course, he's both a very interesting combination of an engineer, an entrepreneur, and an MBA, who's also done MS in industrial engineering from UC Berkeley. So his academics and his training, and he's a great learner. I mean, I've seen him learning every aspect of uh, best practices in wellness, and whether it's community welfare or technology. So having said that, over to you, Naren. We are all eager to hear from you. So good evening, and thanks for joining us from Jaipur after a long, but I would say very energizing day. So over to you, Naren.
Good morning to you, all of you. I have this picture at the back to remind me that I really live in Silicon Valley. So today, I'm delighted to be here to talk about something that is great importance to all of us. So first of all, let me start by saying that we all can also make some big mistakes while we go through our journey. As long as we correct them, that's not a mistake. In Silicon Valley, there is no idea of failure. The idea is you fail, but you succeed by trying again. So since Som started by showing you my picture, let me just start right there. Because we have gone through a number of sessions on diet, food, exercise, sleep, everything. So let me start by saying, why am I even here? So in 2000, my company went public. Versata. It was doing quite well. NASDAQ, everything was great. But as I was looking at myself, on one side, all my pictures everywhere in Fortune magazines, no matter where, but inside I was not a happy person. The reason being, I was not healthy. I had a situation where I had become extremely obese. I was diabetic. I had hiatal hernia. I had to take a sleep apnea machine anywhere we go, and so on. But because of changes in my lifestyle, which is why we are involved here, I can tell you honestly today, Som is right. I woke up at 5 a.m. and here is 10:30. I'm still very active. And I could not have done that unless I changed my lifestyle. So that is enough to say as far as my health hero journey is concerned. I know it is doable. I know we can all do it. The second part is that journey is what caused me to join hands with Dr. Vij and later on Som to start this Crack the Wellness Code program. The idea was if I can do it, many others I knew had done it. And if we had people like Dr. Vij who believed in it, there is an opportunity to influence millions of people, initially NRIs, but eventually back in India, which is why we have Pehla Sukh running in India also now. The idea was 60 to 70% of our diseases are all because of lifestyles. So the question was, can we now, through the program that you've gone through, explain, inspire, support, so that we become healthy? Now, coming back to topic of the today, let me start by this. So let me start with the ancient wisdom. We all want happiness. The purpose of this whole 360 wellness is all about seeking happiness. Now, ancient wisdom says that there are a number of reasons that are required, number of factors are required for you to be happy. So first of them, if you, at least in North India, they will always say, Pehla Sukh Nirogi Kaya, which really means, very simply, you can, for your happiness, the first thing you ever need is a healthy mind and body. Remember, it's not just body, it is also mind and body. So that is an essential part of starting point. The second one, which we, at least I know most Indians that come from India know, family and friends and relationships are very, very important. So no amount of money can make you happy unless you have some relationships. And that starts with your spouse, that starts with your parents, that starts with your friends. As you move to Silicon Valley or outside India, friends take a bigger meaning. So it is about relationship, friends and family. But after that, it is absolutely true that nobody has ever been happy if he has to beg for food or shelter. So we all know that financial wellness is very, very critical. But it's equally important to know that there is another saying which is very, very prevalent, and that is Dam bina nirdhan dukhi, Krishnavas dasnwan. What means is, if you have no money, you're going to be unhappy. But if you have lots of money and your greed is not gone, and you keep on seeking more and more and more, you're still going to be unhappy. So the idea is, how do we create a situation where there is a combination of things we do that allows you to be happy? So coming to then financial wellness, what does it really mean? It is really about financial independence. Now, where does it start? Clearly, when we are young children, we are dependent on our parents for education, for food, for everything that we have in life. But then what? At some stage in the game, you become adult. You even get married. So the point is, until you reach a point where you can live your life without depending on your parents, you're not going to be a happy person. So through some means or the other, we have to figure out how do we reach that stage where we are independent of your parents. It is also true that if you're not independent of your parents, you're not going to be happy, and your wife definitely will not be happy because you have to beg your parents. So that's the starting point. We have to have some starting point whereby I'm not saying that you cannot live with your parents. I'm not saying that you cannot be happy with joint family, but at least you should have a capacity whereby you can live independently. What about after that? So you have now established your home. Maybe you came all the way to California. You found a job and started your life. So now, then what do you have to do? You have to make sure you make enough financial progress. And if I take you all the way to the end, where if you reach retirement stage, you have to make sure you're not dependent on dole out from government or begging your kids for your own needs. So I gave you a starting point, I gave you end point. We must not depend on neither parents rest of our life, nor on the other side, government or children for our livelihood. So those two are understandable. I'm sure you all understand that is important. Then comes something more. As you're living your life, you have to live it in a way whereby you are able to plan and manage your money. Now, there's many simple tools. I still remember my first job happened to be in Cleveland, Ohio, right 69. I remember that I made my first page plan in 1970. It was one pager, just one pager. I knew that I had hardly few $100 after paying my first month rent. So I knew that my net worth was almost zero in the United States. India didn't count, right? That was parental money. So you start by saying, okay, I got a good job. It is okay. I can live with it. I can pay my rent. I can eat my food because I got educated, so I can start the life. But my net worth is almost zero. So if you can then sit down yourself, I'm taking you back, and say, what do I want to achieve in 5 years? You create a plan. This is how much I'm going to earn. This is how I'm going to spend. This is how much I'm going to save. And what am I saving it for? You're saving it for your children's education. You're saving it for some rainy day. A layoff could happen. A health crisis could happen. So the idea is you start saving money. You get insurance to protect your unusual circumstances that happens. But over a period of time, what am I doing? I'm building my net worth by savings and investing it properly. That's all it is. Now, so as you keep on doing it, the other topic always comes, which is very important. For happiness, one more thing is needed. You must have some degree of contentment. Whatever you're doing, if you're unhappy with yourself, you're never going to be happy. So the people who are happy are the people who are giving it all throughout their life. What does that mean? Giving means work, wisdom, or wealth. Or in Hindi, tan, man, dhan. If you can give time, that's giving. If you can give somebody an idea, that's giving. If you can contribute only $10 out of $5,000 salary, that's giving. So giving is something that should start as early as possible. And if you have kids, give them this thought right from young age. If they get a $20 allowance, teach them to give at least $1 or 50 cents or quarter to somebody. So if it starts there, then as time goes by, you are going to be able to give more and more as much as you are able to. So in nutshell, what did I talk? First of all, you should be a healthy mind and body. You should have making sure that by the end, you have taken care of yourself. You have planned and organized your finances, whereby you don't spend more than you have. By the way, I know of people that have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 salaries. You go and look at their accounts. I mean, they're in debt. They may have gotten much bigger house than they could afford. Now they're suffering. So you have to learn to live within your means. On the other side, I was part of the early experiments on credit industries. Do you know what they found? when they want to give you credit, it is not about your income. Number one tool they use is look at your 7-year history and said, did you keep your promises? If you borrowed from somebody, if you're supposed to pay rent to somebody, do you pay on time? Are you a responsible person? So you could be only earning 50,000 and could have a high credit rating. You could be earning 500,000 and a bad earning. Maybe you declared bankruptcies, you did whatever. So idea of managing wealth is just that. The other important thing one must say is for happiness, you must also understand where is the money coming from. Let me be serious about it. If for whatever reasons your money is coming from sources that are illegal or make you feel guilty, you're not going to be a happy person inside. So you have to also remember, where am I getting this money from? Forget about even illegality. Suppose you're getting money from somebody, some source that can immediately throw you out, and you are afraid of that fact. Let me give you just current example. What do you think of, since I'm California, let me be open. What do you think of many people that have worked for Mr. Trump? Is his lawyer happy? He's in jail. So if you're working for a tyrant, if you're working for a king that can put you in jail any minute, or if you're working for some place where you are always afraid to work, oh, I will be fired. Oh, I will be fired. You're not going to be happy. So you have to make sure that you are earning from a place which is right place to work. So you have to select, where do I want to work? Maybe you will earn little less, but work in a place where you're qualified, where you're happy, where you're contributing. So those are the fundamental things of life. So Som, is that a good starting point?
Absolutely, in all respects. I think not only starting point, a good framework, because see, the thing is this way. I was myself researching on financial wellness, and I just wanted to tell you that, universities have defined it. The Consumer Protection Bureau have defined financial wellness. They're using the word wellness, So there are a lot of people who are talking today about financial wellness, But at the same time, how do we integrate financial wellness and finance in well-being is something, people are very confused, And one of the things that really matters is how do you manage this trade-off between finance, stress, and wellness, right?
Yes.
This whole thing, and this is across generations, This is happening, very early. Even, high school, a lot of people are earning, money and doing things, doing extremely well for themselves, but they are not able to strike the balance, And having, seen this thing over the years, what would be, first of all, your advice to the younger generation? How do they manage this stress, and the trade-off between finance and the well-being? Because I think somewhere they're not able to define things, and I think you made one point about choosing the right workplace. But I think there's much more to that, and it would be nice to hear from you on that.
So let's think this way. We live in Silicon Valley. So clearly, one question that young people will always have, how much risk should I take? We look at startups all over the place, right? So the fundamental question is, you must take calculated risk. If you don't take any risk, you will never get much return. That is clear at all stages of life. Question is calculated risk, meaning suppose you want to start a business, your own business. You have to make sure you separate minimum needs you have from the money that you can invest. so that you're not going to be on the street. When I started my company, number of young people came from India and joined my company, and they will come and ask me, "Sir, should I join your startup?" My first question was, do you have enough money to be able to find another job in 3 months? Why? Why, sir? I said, look, I can never guarantee you in a startup that I can keep you forever. But if you have credentials and you have confidence that if I don't have this job, I'll get another big job, no trouble, then joining a startup is a good thing. So, but you must have some capacity, 3 to 6 months savings to take that risk. Keep on going forward. You create a startup. Well, make sure you create an organization whereby your personal wealth is separate from your company wealth. If you take investment from somebody, it is in the name of the company. So you're protecting your own minimum needs. If you make an investment in a mortgage, by the way, buying a house for your own living has been proven over the last 50 years to be the best investment. And I know that people who are in Silicon Valley, whoever made the investment 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, have done well. So you must find a way whereby you have enough savings to be able to get right level of house. But suppose you should be buying a 2 bedroom condo and you bought a 4 bedroom condo. Well, maybe today you can survive, but then what will happen if something happens? So going beyond your means is not a good thing. Now, just Som had asked me to also talk about my own journey. So let me be open about it, and there is no question. So I came from India, from a good family, educated. My father was highly educated. But when I came to United States, I had determined myself that I will not bring any money from India. I would want to stand my own feet. So looking back, I never did. I did get first $2,000 to come to California, and after that, never. So that means I was managing my money from that point onward. So that is what the meaning of a self-made person. So if you are a self-made person, you're going to be happier as much as possible. It doesn't mean that if you have a lot of wealth in your family, you shouldn't use it for your running the business in a bigger way. But ideal thing is that you can create your own wealth. So when I moved to Cleveland, where was I living? In a small apartment. Well, you reached a point where I became manager and director. Well, you can buy a house, small house. Another 5 years passed away. I built my own house. So it was progressive. And somewhere along the lines, in 80, I joined hands with a few of my friends. And we said, well, let's make some longer term investment. But I didn't do it alone. We joined hands with 4 other friends and we bought a small shopping center. I shouldn't say small compared to most of the places. We have had it for 40 years now with my friends. And by the way, that has been the greatest investment. So the point is, you can live your life, save some money, make sure you're taking care of your family, and then make some investments. As you move forward, some point in time, suppose you create a startup. In my case, it is true, honestly true, that I tried a couple of small experiments in Cleveland, Ohio. That was not a good place to create a technology-based startup. But once I came back to Silicon Valley, I saw the opportunity, and I was very late. At age 48, I started my startup journey. So that meant I had 3 kids. I had to make sure that I was able to take care of their education while I was building this company. Fortunately, my involvement with I started, lots of friends joined hands, and that company became successful. But then it went up. So the point I'm trying to say is, uh, in 2000, it had a valuation of $2 billion. Then dot-com happened, big time. Everybody suffered. My company suffered too, badly. But the point is, it suffered, okay, so what? You have to make sure you are protected and you can create another opportunity. So one has to go through ups and downs, but make sure you have created your own minimum needs as you move forward. Then just last point I want to make from my journey point of view, somewhere along 2000, I had an opportunity to come back to Delhi as part of a delegation from Silicon Valley with Kanwal Rekhi and few of my other friends, Anil Godwani and so on. And we met Vajpayee in year 2000. And he inspired us so much, and there's a long story, but he inspired us so much that right that year, I decided that I should start giving back to India. I bought a home, and my friends know that since 2000, I have been living in two countries, 3, 4 months in Jaipur, 9 months there. Now, what does it mean? Look, at that time, I had many, many opportunities. I could have become a venture capitalist, many opportunities. I could have taken another CEO jobs, but I chose different path. I said, look, I have enough. I want to now not focus on wealth as my number one. It became the journey from giving back. So, but you have to decide when. But remember, it should not start when you're 60. You should $5, $10, $100, $500, whatever capacity, just time will make you happy. So I think I've told you enough about my own story. So now let's open it up, Som, for any questions.
Yeah, so thanks. I think there are a lot of interesting points that emerge because you've covered a lot of ground, in fact, a lot of ground. And so we'll take up all the questions. One of the question which basically talks about, if you have lack of capital, how do you start? This is more of an entrepreneurship question. So uh, I would put this in two ways, if you, a lot of people hesitate, if they don't have capital, they can start something on their own. And the other thing is that if they don't have enough capital, they can't start philanthropy. So both are like, again, managing trade-off, and both have to do something with wellness. One is, I would say, your basic, need wellness, and the other is, your spiritual or your other, intellectual and other kinds of wellness. So how does one actually look at it? And from your own experience, when you did mention it, but maybe you can dive a little deeper, when to start this, giving back, the philanthropy, and when should one really start looking at, being financially independent, in the sense that, not just having certain surplus, but kind of integrating your purpose of life, because the problem most of us feel is that the purpose of life is not well defined. And once the purpose of life is not well defined, they are chasing money, they are chasing something or the other, right? So what is the timing for both? Because, there's nothing called that I am ready, with start a company, or I'm ready to do philanthropy. What is some sort of a trigger for to do that? Yeah.
So the trigger should be as early as possible. Early means you should have a mindset of both. See, first responsibility we all have is of ourselves and our family, no questions, right? Because giving and then begging is not a good idea. Suppose you have X and you've given away most of it, and then you reach the point of begging. That's no good. So you have to take care of yourself. the question really is your mindset should be of giving. Giving, I mentioned, is not only money, guys, it's time, it's mindset, it's ideas, and maybe a little bit of money. So sooner you start, happier you will be. My father told me that there is a book in Jaipur Palace where they defined how do you know somebody is happy? Do you know what they said? Very interesting. And they said, well, one of the simplest tests is start looking at a person, and if his hand is like this, meaning he's trying to still grab, versus this, giving, giving. Who is going to be happier? Right? People I know, even my close friends, that have $100 million. Somebody that I know has $1 billion, but they're not happy because somebody else has more than them and they want to achieve the next level. They want to achieve the next level. I know of a couple of people that I feel very unhappy because I cannot convince them that they have enough. But they say, no, I have to cross the $1 billion. I have not become a billionaire yet. Well, I'm not saying why shouldn't they try to be a billionaire, but if that becomes the only purpose of life, they're not going to be happy. Look, how many cases have happened in India? What has happened to Ambani, brother? On and on and on. So the idea of starting SOM early, but in a controlled way, and at some stage, if you are lucky, and I feel really honestly very lucky myself at the moment, that I can make a statement saying that my only purpose of life is to give back now. I reached a point 2 years ago at 75. I made a choice of saying, I will not do anything new to seek money. That's okay. I even changed my website, my LinkedIn. It used to say angel investor. I removed it because as I invest, my mind will be right there. So you have to reach a point where that's the purpose of your life. So then you have to say, what is the reason? For me, it has been throughout community. Initially, it was Thai, where we were trying to teach other entrepreneurs to become successful startup. But since right from beginning, right when I reached Berkeley, it was India Student Association. Then when I reached Cleveland, Ohio, it was India Community Center. I was the first chairman to build the community center there. When I come back to Silicon Valley, I joined hands with Godwani family and Hassan family. And 17 years passed, now we have a thriving India Community Center. But then I kept on remembering I must do something for my home country. That's what brought me back to start giving to my high school, my Birla Institute, where I learned engineering. And then right now, as some number one project I'm leading is Crack the Wellness Code, and in India, Pehla Sukh. So because I see that as the largest potential going forward. And by the way, one more thing I will say, every time I've done something, I've gotten more. Just think of even my journey on this wellness. In last 2.5 years, I have learned every week something new, some refinement. On the other hand, if some ailment happens to me, suddenly I have all the resources that come to me. There was a problem that happened in Jaipur while I was here. Suddenly, connections with Pehla Sukh and local institution immediately came after me to help me. So what I'm saying is you give, you actually get a lot more back. It is really true. So let's open up with some audience questions, Son.
Yes. So there are quite a few and we have time. So please put your questions in the chat box. Or if you want, just ask because this is an interactive forum. So just, straight away ask your questions to Naren. So the other question is that how do you handle requests for money from family friends? Now, particularly, we are in a society where there is social integration, right? And there are relationships, but it becomes very tricky, because on one hand you have to be self-sufficient and all those stuff, and not, people may have the surplus in hand all the time. So how do you handle that request for money from family and friends?
So remember, if you want to help somebody that is close family or very close friends, you have to make sure if you give them money, you never expect it back. You never expect it back. Because if you give money to somebody, if they give back, that's fine. But if you start expecting it back, your relationship will get sour sooner or later. So uh, some minimum is okay, but then think of that as a charity. That's how I should feel about giving to any close family. Somebody is asking as an investment. So there's a difference. Somebody comes to me and saying, Naren, I need $2,000. I have to pay my rent. I have to pay my rent. I just don't have it. Can you lend me $2,000? Now, that's different than saying, Naren, would you invest $100,000 with me in a business? They're two different things. One is helping somebody, other is investing with somebody. They are two different things. What I was saying was true for helping somebody.
Right.
Because worst thing you can do, you lose a friend, you lose a family, if you give them money and then they're not able to return or they don't want to return. Either way, you're going to be a loser, right? They took it, they promised you, they have it, they don't return. If you take them to court, what kind of relation did you have you left? Nothing.
Right. So let's go to the next question, which is a long one. So I'll break it up into two parts. The second part is the one that is interesting. So I'll begin with that. What is financial well-being other than the absence of money-related stress? That's a very important point. What is financial well-being other than absence of money-related stress? And how is it related to overall wellness? The second part of the question. And third, how do you know when you have achieved it? How much is enough?
So that's a very, very important question. Very, very important. So, but there is a way to answer that. The way is, uh, if you reached a point where you have certain lifestyle that you are living at. Suppose I've reached a point where I'm spending 100,000 per year in my living. If I can live that lifestyle with no new work, then you become financially independent. Meaning you're happy with $100,000 living and you have enough savings that generates 100,000. That's the true meaning of financial independence. If you earn more, that's fine, but minimum need has been met. But suppose you are living at 100,000, but your desire is to be living into 500,000 annual expenditure, then you have to keep on working, and that's what causes stress. Stress is just that. I'm here, I have food, I have house, I have everything, but I want to live in a bigger house. Or I want to be able to do this. Well, you have to work hard, hard, hard. And sometimes you achieve, sometimes you don't. And that's what causes stress. So, for example, just using my own example, when I said in year 2005, I decided to start living continuously in both countries without taking a new opportunity. Well, I thought, okay, I have an ability to have a second home in Jaipur, first home in Fremont, and whatever my lifestyle was okay for me. I was not seeking higher lifestyle. Good home in Delhi, I mean Fremont, good home in Jaipur. I'm able to live, I can travel, go and back. I was not seeking bigger. And I knew that I have enough for that much. But I also knew, and this is where you have to make up your mind. I knew that many of my friends have a lot more. I could be seeking more and more. Well, then I have to work more. I have to create more wealth. Right? So that's the choice one makes. But you have to say, and look, it's not just you, your spouse has to be agreeing to, are we okay with the lifestyle we have?
Yeah. So another question. The question is that they say health is wealth, right? Okay. So some kind of even trying to substitute health with wealth. Now, in your case, you have actually shown the way that how to reverse health challenges and acquire some degree, a great degree of um, achievement there. I mean, total preventive care, lifestyle. So there's a big achievement there. And on the other hand, you've also managed to create that necessary wealth for yourself based on your purpose of life. So from both these, what are 2, 3 take-home points you would have for the participants, both from the health as a wealth and as a wealth as a wealth, right? So, yeah.
So let me tell you, people ask me this question, what inspired you at age 64, 65 to completely change your lifestyle? What inspired you? Well, I give two, three answers. One, I give a lot of credit to a friend of mine, Anil Godwani. By the way, do you know what he asked me? One day he calls me up. He said, Naren, you have wonderful three kids. They are all doing well. I want you to give them a gift. I want you to give them a gift. I was surprised. What gift? What is the occasion? What is he talking about? He said, the gift I would like you to give them is to become a role model for them for your health. This was his words. And he meant it. And I had to think about it. And it was completely true that if I did not improve my health, I would be in misery for my three kids. On the other side, since I improved my health, I must tell you, the whole family over a period of time has become health conscious. So it's really true that what you do makes a difference. I'm lucky. I have two kids, two daughters and one son. Asha is and her husband, Poshmark founder Manish Chandra has done well. Uh, Asha is at Facebook, done well. Uh, Same thing is true of my second daughter, Aarti. Her husband is a doctor, Stanford trained pediatrician. They're doing fine. My third child, youngest one, Amit, is married to Prerna. They're living in San Francisco, their own home, they're fine. So the point was, I'd reached a point where all of my three kids are well settled. And they were saying, Daddy, we don't need anything from you. So do whatever you would like. So once you have that feeling that there's no need my kids have, that is the best feeling. And that allows me to come. And by the way, this year, because of COVID and other reasons, For the first time after 56 years, I've been here 10 months, but everything is fine. So the point is you have to balance the need that you have, the family has for you. If they needed my help, naturally I had to make sure that minimum needs I'm giving. But also remember that you cannot be responsible for their success. You cannot be responsible for their success. Once they're adult, they have to live their life. You can guide them, you can help them, but they have to be creating their own life.
Right. One of the part of this question is that when we have a dream to start something big, which will help people, and then you need some support from investors to make it really big and effective. How do we then strike balance as the investor may not like to be friendly or share the same dream as yours typically, or they are friendly at some stage. The friendship may not last all through. So how do you handle that? At the same time, maintain your financial wellness. Is that what you meant, Sachin, by that question? Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So suppose you have a dream. The dreams are of two types. One is business entrepreneurship. Other is societal entrepreneurship. So you have to make sure that you understand the difference between the two. When you are creating a business enterprise, the only reason to create that business enterprise is to create value. Any investor that comes in is also coming in to create value with you. So your common goal is to create value. And as long as two of you are, or a group of people are working towards creating value, you're going to be happy. Wherever there is a difference, it will be because they think there is another way to create better value than you are able to deliver. So there are situations, as you know, it happened with Steve Jobs, it can happen with anybody. Once you take somebody's money, it is no more your company. No more your company. We tell them day one. Once you've taken investor money, any investor, especially venture capital investor, it becomes joint money, joint company. And then if you keep up your mind of saying that now it is a common goal, so you are working on common goal. The other side of the coin, which is like Crack the Wellness Code or ICC, those kinds of institutions, they also need to be financially stable. But their goal is a community goal, common goal, in trying to do something where you have to involve the community. So, Sachin, were you thinking about a big dream in terms of societal or business? Sachin?
Societal, always the philanthropic and sharing platform.
Yeah, so if it is philanthropic goal, then you really have to find the like-minded people over a period of time. You've seen, Sachin, even in the Crack the Wellness Code.
Yes.
Over a period of time, we have increased the size of our team, right? We started
Right.
with just three people
Yeah.
started, right?
Yeah.
Now, how many people are involved? At least 50, 60 people are
Yeah,
involved.
even more, even more.
More, yeah.
Maybe 100. So just think, 30 doctors, so many healthcare professionals, so many wellness patrons, on and on and on, right? But it is also true that there have been 2 or 3 situations where things did not work out.
Yes.
I will not say they did anything wrong or we did anything wrong. I will just say things didn't work out. What does that mean? Their goal turned out to be different than rest of the people's goal.
Right.
And you have to learn to amicably exit.
Right.
That's all. It's like, I know, it's like I faced with the Soham and you, Sachin.
Yes.
And they were not bad people, right?
No.
Remember,
No.
you know, they were fine, but their direction was different than
What
rest
we
of
wish.
the direction. So we have to sit down and figure out and say, well, why don't you do something separate?
Yes,
That's okay. There's nothing wrong. But you have to manage it with care,
diplomatically. Yeah.
diplomatically, care without hurting each other's feelings, so that they remain your friends,
Right.
right? So, and that's very, very important.
The another question,
No,
why I pose the question is
yeah.
that there are so many good causes I see in Silicon Valley around, and most commonly the struggle is to fund their mission. They have wonderful ideas, to do the philanthropic work, train the children, environmental causes, more striking balance for wellness. But usually they don't have enough resources to make a head start, and sometimes they don't know how to make a head start. Ideas are excellent, but they don't have like a big banner or umbrella to support. So where can these type of entities look for to create the financial wellness? They have to support themselves, but they also have to support and mentor their cause, and some succeed for sure. Like they say, the 99 startups fail, but one successful. So, any idea you can give for these grassroots seeding organizations, which can do better with your so much experience?
So let me tell you this. I've been fortunate
Yes,
because of my association with the community and especially ICC.
yes,
So we do Sevathon, right?
yes,
Because of
yeah, yeah,
Sevathon,
yeah.
we come to know of
So
more
many.
than 100. Just think, among
Yeah,
Indian community, we should be very proud. All of us should be proud.
right,
There are at least 100 different causes
right,
that people are supporting.
right.
Now, is any one cause bad or one cause good? It
No.
is because the needs are many.
Mhm.
So, what can we do? The question is, it is not either or, it's a question of what should bubble up, what has bigger support, and what can convince whom. So, that is the reason why we created this Sevathon platform,
Yes,
whereby once a year you come and you get an opportunity
right.
to showcase what you're trying to do and compete. See, we are competing, Sachin, for ideas,
Yes,
right?
ideas.
And
Yes, yeah,
ideas and teams.
yeah.
See, competition, by the way, there's never shortage of money
All right.
for good causes. There's
Yeah,
never shortage. There is a competition of ideas.
right.
One idea is more appealing to the other. Like, for example, just think of our own Indian community. It is absolutely true that number one cause that people who first generation support are saying, what can I do for India?
Yeah,
Somebody poor, right? That's
yeah,
normal. Then number two is what? Number two is, what can I do in terms of my building my temple,
right,
right? So temple, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, that's the second. And
right,
then comes bigger causes of our own community. What can we do for our own community here? That's where
right,
India Community Center and number of other good institutions like Hume Center, South Asia Heart Center, they all fit into that category. And so my suggestion to you is accept, we should all accept that if we are not getting the resources, it is because we were not able to build a team and we could not convince people that our idea was better than somebody else's.
somebody.
So let me tell you that there's some more very interesting questions coming in, and we are getting to
Sure.
the end. But we'll take up those questions. Very interesting question. But I just wanted to echo something along with Naren, is that, see, both of us, we are of course raising funds, right? And what we do, it's a very interesting term that we use, and it works, and it is donor directed projects. Okay, so if somebody is interested in women wellness, we would go to that person, and the person feels good because that's their way of feeling wellness. So they feel very nice, they feel happy if this is my cause, right? So what happens is that the donor is happy or the investor is happy. Same thing which happened with the venture capitalist. The venture capitalist is interested in let's say life sciences, and you're doing something really cutting edge, then it's not just about money, it's about interest, it's about the cause. So same thing in whether it's profit or non-profit. If you can sort of align the interest of the donor or the investor with what you are doing, then I think it's a happy situation. I mean, that is what our experience has taught, even my own experience, and I'm sure many of us have seen that people always give you money when they can align their interest with what you're doing, right? So that could be a good formula, I would say. Okay.
So,
Adolfo has a very good
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So I just wanted to put that the donor-directed fund or whatever, aligning investor or donor interest with what you're doing, that often helps. So this is a
So,
very interesting question from Adolfo. It says, what advice would you give to a 60-year-old, myself, who wants to retire from current job working in a community college with a pension that would not pay as much as I currently make, but wants to work giving back to the community, providing health services to cancer patients. And these health services would be like yoga, breathing techniques, etc., which he has learned over the years. Okay. Do I rely on trust that things will turn out how I envision, or ensure that finances and the finances are secure? So it's basically saying that, do I just put everything on trust that everything will happen and I just jump into my uh, you know giving back mode, right? Or how do I balance this at my age?
so Adolfo, first thing is you have to first make sure, and all of us, this applies to all of us, our first responsibility before giving back is to ourselves. Absolutely. You and your family. So, first of all, you have to say, am I protected for the minimum needs I have? If I'm not protected, giving back comes second. So, believe me, that is absolutely, absolutely true. Because just think, suppose you leave and your pension is not supporting you, and you are trying to help your cancer patients, but there's no money coming. Suddenly, COVID or something else happened, and you have to seek money. That will be very painful. So if I were you, if I was talking with you one on one, I will be happy to sit down, and maybe Som can sit down and
And
assess.
he's also a health hero, Naren, for cancer. So he's also a health hero. So it's very interesting. And if he is able to manage this trade-off, which many people, and there may be a way, and I think that would be a good conversation. So thanks, Adolfo, because many people would face this situation. It is nothing unusual, and it's something that one can certainly work through, but the basic needs have to be met, as Naren said. And how do you do that? We will end this program with one question, which is very interesting, very interesting, very tricky. It says, how do you know that you have achieved financial wellness?
Let me summarize that question. So, in my mind, financial wellness achievement is if you did not get any more money, other than, of course, whatever you earned through Social Security or your pensions or whatever, and you have to take your investments. If that is not enough for you, then you have not achieved your financial independence. You have to seek jobs, consulting, something or the other. So that means you're not financially independent. But then you can take a look at yourself. Maybe you're living in a too big a house and you don't need it anymore. Suppose, you had 4 kids, you had a big house, and now you were just two of you. Maybe you don't need that house. So you can say, oh, I can downsize this. I would have enough money left to be able to become financially independent. So you have to plan it in a way whereby your needs for rest of your life can be met. And that's really why I keep on saying first responsibility is yourself. Then, I mean, yourself and your wife and family. But I will also like to end, Som, by saying that we must also have this feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for God, gratitude for others who have given us so much, love, affection, everything else. So people who practice gratitude, that means they feel good, are always going to do better. So every day, just compare yourself with somebody else. How many people, millions people, are hurting very badly compared to where we are. So we have to be content also with what we have. And
So, no, that's a nice way of actually putting things together. So it's a question of gratitude, your level of feeling saturated. I mean, if you don't feel saturated, if you don't have a way of, feeling saturated, then obviously, you'll be yearning for more, and that's obviously not a situation of wellness. So you first need to first look inside. I think then this whole thing comes a little bit with the spirituality part of it, which we're going to cover in the next session,
so,
intellectual and spiritual part. So anything that you wanted to add, Naren? I think you wanted to say something on that front.
no, I just want to give a couple of quotes. So there
Sure.
is one quote which says, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Few wants,
Yes.
right? The other one, too many people spend money they earned to buy things they don't want or need, to impress people that they don't like. How many things we do to impress others? I want this big house, I want this big car. I don't need it, but I am doing that.
Rat race.
Rat race, right? So the last one, financial peace isn't the acquisition of stuff. It's learning to live on less than you make. So you can give money back and have money to invest. You can't win until you do this. Let me repeat. Financial peace isn't the acquisition of stuff more and more and more. It's learning to live on less than you make. So you can give money back to somebody else, at the same time invest. You can't win until you have learned to do this. It is so true. Because
Please send this, to us, and we'll share it with the participants. I think they cover a very wide canvas of how one should manage their life, finance, and wellness. So it would be great to share that with the participants.
sure.
As you know, this is a 10 series program, and each one has a takeaway. So this would be a very good takeaway for the participants. And finally, one thing I just wanted to observe is that there is this whole culture of minimalism that is also coming up, and younger generation, it's very amazing how they have become minimalist in terms of what they want and what they need. And some of them seem to be very happy in that mode, the shared economy, the shared, transportation, and minimalism. So that's a very interesting aspect. And I think with COVID, people have just tried to see how to live with less and still be happy. So these are some of the things that are trends, I would say, because, things have evolved where people always looked at big burger, big car, big house, and so on. There is now also a trend towards minimalism, and people seem to be very happy. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from COVID, saying that, well, I'm not traveling so much, I'm not doing all those things, but I'm still, they're able to make themselves happy, you know. And yesterday, I mean, we are also here, getting into so many virtual programs. We hear some great personalities, how they are spending their life, and it's very interesting to see how they have all become, happy living with less. So that's a good, I would say, lesson for some of us, and could be also a good take-home point. Yeah. So thanks everybody. Thank you, Naren. I know it's very late. Can't thank you enough for everything that you do, and of course today's session. And thanks to all the participants. We'll be sending you details of all the sessions so far. And I want to tell you that all the videos are available to you but for a limited time that you make use of it. Okay, it is in our website. If you go to Crack the Wellness Code, go to events and this webinar, and in the webinar page, you will find Wellness Support Group button. Press the button, you'll find all the videos. All the videos. We have been sending you the links, and we also been sending you other items. And also for this event, we'll send you all the material. And do complete the survey, because that is important for the certification program. And we really look forward to, having many of you certified so that you can help others, spread this wellness to others, and also participate in some of the programs or impact assessment that we'll be doing.
Som, I would like to introduce some of our team members in Jaipur.
Sure, please.
Tushar Garg is here. So is Jitendra Gautam. And I also see Arushi Jain. So just think, here is a team of people who are sitting in Jaipur and doing work for CWC.
Very nice.
So I'm so very happy that they are here. And of course, I want to thank Yogendra Bobra, who is here too. Yogenji, you are there. I know your picture is not coming, but you're there. And Sachin. So all of you are doing such good work. I'm very, very proud of being associated with you.
Yeah, and to everybody, I can see so many names of people who are coming again and again, and we get some very encouraging feedback, because your encouraging feedback really helps us to get going, including people like Suzanne, Adolfo, Sonal, everybody. I can read everybody's name here. It's really heartwarming and very encouraging. So be with us, and we'll certainly make sure that we give you all the tools and the best practices for your wellness. So thank you very much.